Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Sri Matre Namaha. Today is the 27th talk that we started from Devi Navaratri. We started with the Devi Mahatmyam, and now we are discussing about the Devata experiences, that is experiencing Devi as your Ishta Devata. Because as we know, Devi is also in many manifest forms. And so whatever I'm speaking here is for your Ishta Devata, whether it is the goddess Devi or Shiva and Vishnu, Ganapati, Kartikeya, whoever is your Ishta Devata. And this experiencing of the Devatas or gods is not pertaining just to the Vedic gods, but also to the gods of other religions, whom they perceive as God. Now, we see Devi as Para and Apara. That means she is the relative and the absolute or transcendental. In the relative consciousness, then we say she is the eightfold Prakriti. This eightfold Prakriti is, we have understood, that it is the 5 elements and the ego and the mind and the intellect. So this is in fact a replication of each one of us, because we are all that eightfold Prakriti. Since Prakriti by itself does not have the existence without the source of absolute consciousness, so then we say Devi is 100% absolute consciousness and also 100% of the relative consciousness, which is the Prakriti. So in order to know Devi in totality, then we have to be able to transcend all of the nature and know the finer aspects of her nature, and also know her as the transcendental self or the pure absolute consciousness. So in essence, what is happening here is, by trying to know Devi, you are beginning to know yourself. You are beginning to know yourself in the subtle fields of the relative nature. And when you experience the bliss consciousness or the transcendental consciousness, then you also understand that you are that, and Devi is also that. Now we know that every ardent devotee who is filled with devotion, we will talk about devotion and faith later, wants to experience their God. That is the final fulfillment, and that is the final revelation of the truth that this Devi is for real. Now we all know when the great rishis were meditating on Paramatma, the transcendental eternal self, and they experienced it in a concrete way and started expressing it as Upanishads, then the whole world came to know, yes, this is for real because it has been experienced. Not only is Paramatma experienced, but one has experienced himself as that eternal, pure eternal, transcendental consciousness. And so then this truth has been revealed, that the Atma of everyone is Paramatma alone. That this Atma of everyone has this infinite capacity to be from human to divine and beyond. And so this is why for every devotee it becomes important to experience Devi or their Ishta Devata, so that then it is not just some belief, some mythology, or some blind faith. So, it is the ultimate fulfillment of the ultimate desire for every devotee to experience Devi. So here I will continue expressing it for Devi, but you understand that it is for all living gods. For a devotee, experiencing the form of Devi is the ultimate joy and the ultimate fulfillment. Now we must understand that these experiences are in the relative field, but in the subtlest fields of this relativity. In essence, we can say they are at the junction of the relative and the absolute. That is just before experiencing the absolute pure consciousness. This is where one can experience the form of Devi. Now, for the personification, the Devi assumes one of the gunas. There are the three gunas, but one guna she expresses more. Just like, for example, if we take Kalika, then more of Tamoguna is expressed here. If we take Mahasaraswati, more of Sattva Guna is expressed. And if we take Ma Durga, then more of Rajoguna is expressed. And these gunas are expressed only to express the different kinds of activities of Devi. Now we can extend this to the Trinity also, the Bhagavan Shiva and Bhagavan Vishnu and Brahma in their manifest forms. So a certain form with a certain gunas are assumed just for these functions of this creation, maintenance and the dissolution, and to help with the evolution. Now, all the forms of Devi which are explicitly described are very true in the Vedic structure. The extraordinary detail of her appearance, of her decoration, of her weapons, and in all aspects is all true. Now, all the forms of Devi are like the different ripples what we see in one pond, in one still pond, and then different ripples come up when we throw a leaf or a flower or a small pebble, and each ripple is different. Its characteristic and the formation of a ripple is different with each. But it is in one pond we are seeing these different ripples. So just like that, in this pure absolute consciousness, the Devi manifesting is like these ripples. And we know these ripples are because of the waves. And we further understand that these waves are the form of sound. And at these finer levels, the finest levels, this sound and form come together, and all the images or all the manifestations of Devi that we see are just this sound waves. So in essence, it is said that the form is as the sound is, and the sound is as the form is. And this is how the different images of Devi have emerged from the sounds. And these, in essence, in the Vedic literature are also called mantras. So again, when you are transcending, then you are transcending these finer and finer waves of the sound, which is to the mantra, or the sound of these finest waves through the senses. And for those who have experienced Devi in her form, then she appears in the form that you desire, what you have in your mind, and what you have been worshipping as. If you have been worshipping Durga, Ma Durga, in a certain form, in a certain image, then that is how she expresses herself. And it is the same with Ma Saraswati or Ma Kalika or Mahalakshmi or Ma Gayatri, because infinite are her forms. And so in one form she has become your Ishtadevata. And we have already seen that she is full of light because of the space element Akasha Dhatu, Akasha, and so are also all the Devatas. Further, it is very important to understand that Devi experience can only happen during transcendence. Devi is omnipresent, she is infinitely all-pervading, she is available to everyone, but her experience is experienced in those subtle transcendental fields. So, during meditation and in the process of the transcendence, then this devotee first experiences the relationship and the mechanics of the gunas. More and more of this mechanics of the gunas, the sattva, the tamas and the rajas, and their relationship to each other becomes more apparent. In essence, understanding these mechanics of these gunas in a subtler and subtler way is understanding your own gunas. Devi is referred to as Gunamayi, that means she is the one, she is the source and she is the form of the gunas. And her form is only because of these gunas. Now, experiencing these subtler and subtler aspects of these gunas, this is the field where you can express the desire to have the experience of Devi. And this is the field where this desire is fulfilled. And the experience of Devi or God then is the experience of the light of God. And this is how the devotees will say, I have had the vision of God, I have seen the light of God, I have experienced God as myself. And this is how the man, the devotee of God, finds fulfillment in the light of God. So here the most important thing is that during your meditation, you really should not expect anything and you innocently experience everything. Let the mind just transcend and then you express your desire in those finer and finer fields, which is, beyond the gunas. And how Devi manifests herself, whether she expresses herself as some kind of a glow or light, or whether she expresses herself in some form of a sound or one of the senses, or she expresses herself as a form, it is up to her. Now, let me take this a step further in the experience of Devi. We have already understood that Devi, the Parameshwari, is the pure absolute consciousness and also the pure relative consciousness. And that is why we refer to her as Shiva. We say Shiva, and Shiva here is the person, is the representation of Shiva. That means she has attained the status of Shiva as the absolute pure consciousness, the pure silence. And this is also depicted with the Ardhanarishwari. Being 50% of Shiva means she is again both the absolute and the pure and the relative together, the totality of it. Now, in the transcendental field, what is the true form of Devi? The true form of Devi is bliss alone, and that is also our nature. The nature of the Atma is bliss alone. So Devi, that's why we see Devi as very blissful, depicting this bliss, expressing this bliss. So when you experience Devi, then you are experiencing this pure bliss, this unlimited bliss, infinite bliss, we call it. And when this bliss is experienced, then it naturally washes out every kind of suffering or sorrow or grief or fear or whatever one has experienced. It is immediately all washed out, because it is the flood of this bliss that comes on the experience of Devi that washes out all the impurities, all the negative tendencies, and all the sufferings that have been accumulated over the years. And this is a reality. Now, for the most part, the whole of the life of an individual is really stuck up in the limited experiences and limited existence. Now, when we say Devi is omnipotent, all-pervading, and she is the form of bliss, then bliss is also not isolated in space and time. So we realize that bliss is universally available to everyone in every space and time. So it's important for every seeker and for every devotee that experiencing Devi is experiencing this bliss, because ordinary happiness, ordinary joys are not bliss. Ordinary joys one gets in seeing some nice things, hearing about some nice music or news, or attaining small objectives and fulfilling small desires. And these are all isolated values, and they are fragmented. And these are all sensory satisfactions. Senses are involved. And the bliss that we are talking is beyond the senses. So experiencing Devi is experiencing bliss. And experiencing Devi in these transcendental subtle fields is in the form of waves of bliss. Now, when one transcends all of the nature of Devi, or in essence yourself, then you are in the pure transcendental consciousness, and this is also bliss, because here the pure transcendental consciousness, or the Atma, the nature of it and the form of it, is bliss only. But here in the pure transcendental consciousness, the bliss is in the form of an ocean which is full, where there are no waves, where there are no ripples, and it is full. Whereas experiencing the bliss of Devi in the subtlest fields of the relativity is actually like the flow. It is like the flow of Ma Ganga with its waves. So here the bliss is flowing. The bliss is flowing so naturally. The feeling of that flowing is very delightful to the mind and the senses. When the bliss is flowing, it is more enjoyable, more and more joy. It is very difficult for me to actually express this. One has to experience it. And so naturally when it is flowing, it has its own form, and it has its own song and dance, as we say. So you feel it like waves, you feel it like waterfalls, you feel it like a spring coming forth, a huge spring. So this bliss is experienced in that way, in different ways. And then this bliss is also not limited. It's not limited to you. When you have experienced Devi in that bliss, then you understand that this bliss is all around you and everywhere. Yes, there is a focal point that, just as we say, the being is reflected more and more in the nervous system. So also the bliss is experienced more and more in the heart and the nervous system and all. But then one begins to cognize that this bliss is not limited to you. It is all around you and everywhere around you. So when such a flood of bliss, when Ma Ganga comes rushing to you in the form of bliss, then what else impurities can remain there? Everything gets washed out, everything gets purified, everything gets glorified. And so this is the experience of Devi that each devotee is seeking, and he is wanting, and he is praying for, and he is meditating for. And this will get fulfilled, but in an innocent way. So you just keep meditating and you keep transcending and transcending, and keep the physiology pure, then all will happen in the right time. You will understand more of this as we dwell in Gita about the God consciousness, Bhagavad Gita. So I will end here for now. Jai Gurudev, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu.